Hello, you are in for an interesting ride.
Hello folks, and welcome to another ET Newsroom episode. In this one, I am absolutely delighted to be inviting aboard for maybe one or two episodes a really iconic figure, not devoid of controversy, and who was a major whistleblower and spoke at the 2001 Dr. Greer Disclosure Project back in May of that year. And 45 years on, in May of 2026, Larry Warren is still that figure of controversy, and I am delighted to invite him to have a chat with us and explore and introduce to those who don't know after 45 years this incredible story of how the joint bases of Bentwaters and Woodbridge in England, Suffolk, joint with US and UK personnel, had close encounters of the remarkable kind with landed UFOs and beings. This took place not over one night, but several. How important this event was. Some people say it is the UK's Roswell. I don't know if it equates. I think this was in some ways even more important because there were so many witnesses, and both governments have made a very good job of disavowing, using all manner of deceit and threats, as usual in those days, and of course denial and personal attacks and all the rest of that to deflect from the story. So I hope that you will enjoy this meeting of minds and the ET Newsroom. I am your host, Joanna Summerscales, as ever. Strap up, folks. You're going to need a seatbelt and your popcorn. And please give it up big and large for Larry Warren. Enjoy. So Larry, as you'll see, I've had chance to change because I really needed to.
I see.
So tell us a little bit about the genesis of Larry Warren, because you were LPK?
Oh, my name when I was born. Yeah, I'm adopted and proudly, and my sister is adopted, and we're very proud of it. We always knew about it. We always had a special day, which is like a birthday. I think I'm a big advocate of adoption, doing it, obviously, particularly the area I was born in. God knows how a single young mother would be treated. I was born in the Bronx, New York City. So I was born in the Misericordia Hospital, Bronx. It doesn't exist anymore. So I was adopted. My name, the nurse at Catholic Charities turned the book around and showed my mother, Joanne, because my adopted parents are my parents. So my name was William Patrick Kane, Kane. My mother happened to see it.
Your birth mum, just to finish up with that, did you get to know or find out anything about her apart from her age? She was 17 when you were born.
I wrote in my book, one of my chapters, I was born on this day in 1961, and I was adopted, and my name was William Patrick Kane. But I put that in just on the offhand that my biological mother was a UFO freak and read my book and said, maybe it wouldn't have clicked. Who knows? So I did that. And there's things I wouldn't do now because I was a kid when I wrote that book. It was in my 20s. It came out, I was 36. I'm 65 in a few months. So it's just been a joyous ride. Like anybody else, family train wrecks. I came up with a lot of opportunities looking back that a lot of kids don't have or didn't have, and a lot of that I blew or ignored because I knew better. My parents split in 1968. It was, divorce or split, and I have two other brothers. I don't use the word step, but family's family. No, my family's a train wreck like everybody else's. And,
you were quite close to your mum, as far as I'm can tell.
My mother was hard work because she's a South Boston girl, and my parents are from Boston, Mass. So they say Hoswadaka, and the Yakas, my sister and me in New York. My dad was from Cambridge, Mass, and working class people. My dad became a very educated guy and very successful in business. My mother they met working for insurance companies in the early 50s when my dad got out of the Army. on the Korean thing. And so they're a bit old when they decided to get us. My dad was going to go on the PGA Tour for the golf. He was a great golfer, beat Arnold Palmer in college. But I said, man, you should have done that instead of grabbing me. And my dad said to me, Larry, he's a Larry too, he said, you had to get a caravan, or what you call them over here, but a trailer in America. And he said, your mother and me would have had to drive around, do the circuit and all. We wanted kids. And he goes, I was building a business. And so they did that. And he still remained till the end of his life a seniors champion in his golf clubs and stuff. But they made that choice. My mother, her working life ended up working as a senior buyer for Nellis James Bear, who's a giant company from Finland that makes bearings for the paper industry. She'd go to Helsinki and do all that. And, they worked hard. And my dad remarried my stepmother, and I gave my family a hard time. I was difficult. I was different. I was a different guy. I had my own idea, but, I had different genes too, didn't I?
Of course, that event that happened back in the 1970s with your mum, Joanne.
Oh, the UFO. See, no one asked these things. When I was a little kid in the 60s, and I wrote about it in the book, which is a very true book, no matter what, it's true. Well, as a little kid, I'm not from a family with UFO interests, ghost or anything. There's open mind. All my relatives, I can't think of one. And, they're all supportive of me, most of them, except one woman that married one of my brothers, apparently. I've only met her twice briefly. But anyway, I was a kid and I'd have these things happen with something that I would assume is Casper the Friendly Ghost. And that's all I could relate it to, coming through my walls and up to my crib even. And there was no science fiction things in my house. My dad was 30 when they got me, and my mother's 29. And that was like old folks back then. So, there was no hippy dippy stuff. And, I grew up listening to Benny Goodman.
What were those Casper the Ghost?
Casper the Friendly Ghost. Casper was not a friendly ghost in the end. They were beings with the communion face, the cover book. Everyone loves that, the big eyes, that I can remember. And they were very pale, and they come right through my wall. I literally I drove hundreds of miles to go back to that house where I could still see that. And the owner would let me in. I was with a girlfriend at the time in the early 90s. I said, well, I lived here in the early 60s, and I didn't tell him the rest. And I knew where my bedroom was, and there was a reason I wanted to go in there. But I had a lot of these weird things as a kid to see things that couldn't be. And you think, is it the imagination of a kid? Is it not?
Was there any interaction between you and whatever was coming through the wall?
I look back, it was kind of like in the head, this, if I told anyone, it was like a guilt trip. And I had this doll that was a lobster. I mean, people have teddy bears. I had a lobster. Don't ask why, I don't know. And I had this image of it, these things looking at me. I saw a praying mantis outside one time with clothes, a giant thing with about 1965, And I used to go out. A serial killer could have gotten me. I go out and pretend I was a train. There was train tracks behind these other houses. And I mean, where the hell, how did I get there? But it truly did it. And I'd run around the tracks, and I saw these kids one day, and I thought they're older than me. And then they kept morphing, and then they said they lived here, and it was the silver, like a carrot, the old Lucy and Ricky caravans back in the I Love Lucy days. And it turns out that's a swamp at that time. Many years later, that same time I went back, I had to go on those tracks. And I looked over, and they had built up that area. It was all housing now. But that was a swamp back in the 60s. There was no caravan out there. And the faces changed. And then one day there was this apple tree, which this was real, in this pond. I heard this buzz in my head, which is a vibration. I looked over. I don't mind my age saying it, but there was this amorphous thing around an apple tree. New York State has a lot of apple trees. I can't describe it. It was like a big snake around it. I can still see it. It was whitish pearl color. And then next to it, just looking at me, was a giant head like a praying mantis. I don't remember if it had antennas or anything, but it was just the face looking at me. It was a blue-gray, but it was the eyes. And this blue, like I've never seen, I can still see it, cape thing with the science fiction movie kind of thing that goes, and just staring at me, about 7 feet tall. I was little. And I had this image in the head. It was always about suppression. It was, if you tell anyone about this, it said you, and it showed the real praying mantis, which we have in New York. You cannot harm praying mantises. Now, I guess it is against the law in New York, but it was this big guilt about harming the praying mantis. And I'm looking at this thing, Mr. Praying Mantis,
Were
but
you
without
fearful?
those. I don't remember. I think I was just kind of like stupid and, a little kid. And there's no reason I should have been alone in this area behind it. I was there at the construction site or when it was back then on my own at that age. And 4 or 5, 60, about 1966, maybe 65. Where's parents looking for me? And a lot of those things. I remember Timothy Good or Bud or somebody said to me, they did a pre-read of the book, and they said, "You sure you want to put all that in?" I go, "Yes," because every experience, I went through the famous thing, the Rendlesham, but every experience I know hasn't just had one. They've had multiple bizarre, different things in their life, or coincidences and things the average person may have and don't recognize. The problem with Rendlesham, it involves governments and being in
Yeah.
the service and all that repressive stuff. So I have very clear memories of that as a child, but I don't remember being on tables or on. I remember one time my parents and we were. I don't know if they never knew what I was talking about. We were on a ferry, and there were shadows on these railings and big windows, and my parents just didn't move. And it's before they had seatbelts, even for kids and cars, right? Believe it or not. And I can remember it was a very green walls, and I said, "Did we ever ride a ferry or the Staten Island ferry?" I didn't know what I was talking about, but I always look at this. I have still the clear image of it, brief as it is, at almost 65. And that's a bit unusual, isn't it? Very unusual.
Sorry to interrupt, Larry. Did these all
No.
continue throughout your life then? And because I want to get to the one where
Yeah.
you had an experience
Yeah.
with your mum, Joanne.
In 1973, I was living with my dad and in Connecticut, and there were all these books on I did a book report on UFOs in 1971. My dad did the cover. I wish I still had that thing. It must have been brilliant. I don't know. And it was about a sighting over Brooklyn, New York, by a guy named Frank Edwards, who was I guess, a popular writer of the day. And it was one of those scholastic books, and it just grabbed me because there were no UFO books in the house or sci-fi movies. My mother would get mad if I watched the Monkees TV show or the Three Stooges. They really are pretty serious people. I remember Charlie Hickson, Calvin Parker, Pascagoula. Eventually in my life, I got to be very good friends with one of them and knew the other. And so I was aware of all that. And then I started to look back at the history, and I was fascinated. I spent more time reading than that. So in the summer of 74, in August, I was staying in New York with my mother, and this is upstate New York. I went up to visit, my sister and her lived together. She's in this apartment complex, very nice garden apartment complex. And just before this, a couple days after that, John Lennon had his famous sighting in New York City on the roof on 52nd Street, not the Dakota, East Side. And just as a reference, because there was a big wave over New York State. We didn't know it. So this particular night, I go in my sister's room. She was younger than me, sharing the room with my mother. And I played ice hockey. I was a boy's boy kind of guy, and I was asleep, and it was a pretty bright room. I just had fear over me. I woke up and I felt something was in the room. So I took the sleeping bag, still can picture it had American flags and things on it. It must have been my sister. And I went into my mother's room. It was very dark out back, and there's the Adirondack, the Northway they call it, mountains and all this stuff. So I lay down on the floor. My sister would have been neck closest to me on the bed. She was out of it. And my mother was out of it. I went to sleep instantly on the floor, but scared. I didn't run to mommy and daddy at that age. I was like, 13, 12. Next thing I know, I heard my name twice. Can still remember it. Can't remember if it was male, female. Just remember the name. And I opened my eyes. I got up, but it was like trying to stand up. It was a lot of effort. There was a silver glow to the room. Silver, I mean, like a weird. And I get up on the thing, and what my mother would have said if she was still on Earth, she's on tape saying it to Bud Hopkins, is that all of a sudden I just popped up near the bed. And why she saw that is she had been woken up and just immediately turned around because the headboard is the windows right there. And right outside the window was this craft just sitting. It's 2-floor building, just 1 and 2. It's not tall building, sitting right there. And it extended down the building. So other apartments could have seen it. It's about 3 a.m, I guess, I'm thinking. And I came over and I can still see her looking, but it wasn't lit up. But yet she said it was bright. Now you'd think I could see it, right? So I went to the window. We have screens to keep bugs out and stuff. You don't get them here. And there's a smell to screens in the summer. And I was that close to it. She goes, do you see it? Or something like that. And all I could see was a silver shard in my upper right eye, upper corner. That was it. And I looked at my mother. I went, oh, I went slowly back around the bed and like way and down. I can remember doing it. Now, like my mother family would have said, back at that time, I was such a UFO freak on books and things. I would have been out that door, downstairs and out back, maybe, right? I've been really, that's my conscious memory of that. My mother clearly saw it. It was like 2 diamonds connected by a big, long rod or some sort of thing. She drew it and that drawing vanished. She was quite an artist. She drew it the next day. The next night, my sister went to Lake George, famous lake. We had ship battles with you guys on it. You know, Last of the Mohegans and all that took place there. I wasn't feeling right that day and out of sorts. I can remember it. And my sister came running in about 9 at night, and she was with her little friend on her dad's motorboat, speedboat. And my sister still to this day could care less about UFOs, nothing. She doesn't care. She didn't believe. She believes me or that I believe her. She has no interest. She comes running in and she goes, turn on the radio. There's UFOs all over the place, right? So we turned on the local WWSC Y96 FM. I eventually worked for them. And there were indeed, a baseball park was full. They were telling people not to drive down that road, turn away. There was too many traffic, and there was UFOs everywhere. I did not go out. I think I went on my mother's porch, looked up, and just sat down. It was just not me. I would have not even go out in the parking lot. And there were people out, I guess, watching.
And did you see anything then?
Nope. I have a lot of friends I went to school with that they saw them that night, you know, who are all same age. No, I didn't go out. Now, here's a guy that had a UFO book collection, a little one at that age. Nothing. I didn't do. It was just right out of me. Nothing. And I think my mother might have gone out to look and my sister, but we didn't. And they were everywhere. And the state police chased them. These are in the NICAP books. That night is everywhere in the reports. And over Albany County Airport, they tracked an object at 4,000 miles an hour. State police saw a blimp-like thing suck water out of Saratoga Lake. It was all in that. It was a. And then John Lennon's New York City had a wave, and it was just down the state. So the whole East Coast got a major wave. And so, but my reaction was totally bizarre. Not what I'm saying is how I didn't react. It's something. So we did explore that with Bud. I did with hypnosis because I trust Bud Hopkins. And the co-author was there, you know, because I trusted him then. And what came out, now I was skeptical of hypnosis. I have been, people have tried it a few times with me, and I'm like, well, I'm very skeptical of it. First time it was done with me with the Rendlesham thing by a guy named Fred Max from Yale University. And I said, I can hear dogs. And he goes, are there dogs in the field with you? I said, no, they're next door. So that didn't go down well. So, but Bud I trusted, and some things did come out with Rendlesham another time. But that one, my mother spoke at length with Bud Hopkins. I have the audio tape about that. She has recollections of, or clean my things, of big water tanks from our night, big hoses on the ground, shadow type beings or shadows of something, and bright, but the wet floors and giant black hoses everywhere. and everywhere on the floors. And my mother wasn't that kind of, but that came from that night. Then we had another one, in 76. I was living with my mother by then. She picked me up. I was visiting my dad, so we went in the reverse. That's how teenage years were. And that's little kids could ride buses then, no one bothered you. It was all right. And we're driving up the Northway, and my sister was at home. It was after a Christmas. I don't know what the hell reason. This thing came by the car. It rocked the car. It was like a ball of energy off the highway. Suddenly, there was no traffic at all. And this is the New York Thruway, the Northway, they call it, 87 North. She pulled over, which you don't do on the highway. And in front of us, there's Saratoga. You know the racetrack with the Saratoga horses? We parked there, and over the bridge, this thing looked like the undercarriage of a blimp, right? It had windows, and you could see shadow people looking out at things, looking out, silhouettes. And my head buzzed. Again, that buzz. I just sunk. And I can remember that thing just going past. No traffic, suddenly nothing, zero. Well, we got home. What should have taken an hour drive took us 3 hours. Put two and two together. No. Did we explore that? I don't think either of us wanted to, because I think that would be something I don't want to visit. I have little flashes of things, but I have never claimed to have been on a table like dear Travis or dear Betty Hill, people I know and knew and respect, and any other experiencer. I don't want to remember that. It's weird enough seeing these things, It's not fun. It's not love and light. It's not bad either. It's just weird.
I think it's paradigm altering, isn't it? It really changes everything. Your reference points in life.
Yeah, and you question yourself. Even people think with me, hey, I've told you I erased it. That time in '74. It'd be great. I could say, yeah, I went out and I saw. I didn't go anywhere, and I would have, absolutely would have. And no, and that was wrong. That behavior was just so not me. And I look back on it, and I can still remember it all happening, and a lot of other people do that I know because it was in the newspapers. The night ours happened was the night before all of it broke loose, and this thing was literally a few feet from my face, which I don't like thinking about.
Are you aware of any impact in your work life, how you are, your development as a person? Are you aware of anything, or your health even?
Well, we were all damaged from the Rendlesham thing, and that's documented. It's not just John Burroughs. I never get asked these questions, ever. Real questions.
So what I'm asking is, from all of these events, there seem to have been many that you've had since a toddler.
Many.
Have you had has any real impact that you're aware of, or psychologically, emotionally, physically, and in your development as a person, would you say?
Well, physically, I had, how do you go there? Well, I found I wasn't alone in this either. That puberty era, when you're in that age, 14, right around, 74, right? And into the next year. Now, I'm living with a single mother and a sister, right? Well, I had a certain issue in a certain part of me, like surgical scar that had healed. And I hadn't had surgery there. That how I'm going around this. And who do you tell? And I had some issues. There was like a drill hole and all long scar, and it is scar because my first wife was in medicine. But how do you explain that? And so I said to my mother, I said, Heaven, this without telling her, She goes, well, and a friend of hers she worked with, well, you could tell him. So I told him, he goes, and he didn't know. And I'm like, I don't like this. I didn't know what it was. Well, as the years go by, I see, I become Larry Warren with the Rendlesham crap. And then I meet all these people with the abduction thing and all, and what happens to people and the scars and the implants and the disc. And I'm like, well, there you go. And I wasn't unique with that area also with men, but men are less talkative about it.
I understand that. And so,
funny enough, you think we'd be all locker rooms, and we're not at all. No.
Do you think you experienced an implant of any kind, or is that not really?
Oh yeah. Oh no, 100%. I've had not there. I don't know what they did down there, why they were interested, and it was not any doctors that did that to me. But I've had things just under the skin, triangular things that moved and weren't there eventually. but they had defined shapes.
Is that on your torso? You look like you're indicating.
That was on my rib. That was on my rib cage, you know. And I had a doctor look at that in Phoenix, Arizona, and he said that's like some kind of triangular object. I've had nasal trouble where there's been like surgery and there never was, which is standard textbook for any.
You are like a textbook case, really.
Oh, I'm some kind of case.
But look, I haven't delved a lot into your case, but you have not ever been presented as a lifelong experiencer, and you are. I mean, even if you're not now, you certainly have been in your earlier years.
Oh, I am now.
Okay. Well, let's.
Oh yeah, I've had more than my share, even on Merseyside, even with other people that absolutely shut down. Picture a saucer near your party deck, broad daylight, 20 feet away, and you're with an ex-French Foreign Legion member who absolutely melts down. And then another guy, this is about during the COVID thing. Yeah. And they just to watch human reaction, but it happened. And you think, take a picture. I didn't own this camera then, this phone thing. You don't think to do it. It was literally, hello, green and black thing. It was you're thinking every reason of what it could be. And it was none of them because it just
what shape
right up.
Was that?
Unfortunately, a saucer shape.
Well, it's not unfortunate. It's just asking, there's lots of different shapes.
Yeah, but, people laugh at that. But I've seen a saucer go right under the George Washington Bridge. Nothing can fly into that. And I was with someone rather famous. And they didn't see it. And I didn't tell them about it. But my friend over in New Jersey, who was famous, and her and her daughter did see it. Right sitting next to the bridge as we passed over. There was so much. No, people believe it. That's their problem. The people that went through it with me believe it. But I have seen people literally shut down because this is not in their remit. They don't want it in their remit.
No, it's life-changing because it changes your parameters of reference.
My book has a lot left at Eastgate, and I name that, and it is my book. There's a lot of this in it. An awful lot of it in it, but it's an old book,
This is about you.
Yeah.
Bring them in, and I'm interested in condensing your story and really letting people see who you are and what this incredible experience is that you've been through all your life. I mean, it's like, and you've been conscious of it.
Oh, yeah.
This is very interesting because a lot of people aren't. And then a lot of people, as you say, have meltdowns, themselves, or certainly those with them if they speak about it. Let's do an introduction. So what took you into the Air Force?
Excellent question. No one ever asked. I knew I had to do something after high school in 1979. I couldn't wait to get the hell out of school in general. I was great in history and English and all, but most of it not so good. Was bored with it. So in 79 November, the Iranians took our hostages at the embassy in Tehran. I was very upset about it. I got mad and I ran down the recruiter to try to join the Army, not the Air Force. And my mother wanted me to join the Navy, but I get seasick on a duck pond. So I went to the Army and I said, I want to join the Special Forces. And they said, well, you've got, and remember, this is 4 years after Saigon fell. That's all. And Jimmy Carter was president, just to give context. So I said, well, what do you do to be a Green Beret? He said, you've got to make it to sergeant and hope, wish for hell and high water that you ever get there. You're born to do that. So I said, well, heck with that. So I had gone to school in England, in Essex, in Billericay as an exchange student, not because I had brilliant.
So we'll pick up. So you were an exchange student in Billericay, England. At what age?
I was 17, and I was very lucky to do that. My mother raised $400, and I had to get a passport in 1978, my first. And I came over here with my class. We had a twin thing with the Mayflower School in Billericay. And we came and we spent, I think it was 3 weeks or 2, I don't remember. It wasn't like a real exchange thing. And we went to school, sixth form, and for a few days. And then we traveled around in the South, all the sites, stayed in London. And it was a thrill of my life. It absolutely changed my life. I came back. I wasn't a big fan of high school, but the last, my 11th and 12th year were the best. Great time. Was in the rock and roll bands, but that made me. So I joined the Air Force. I went over. The Army was not for me. I because I'd had the experience in England. I said the recruiter's office. They're all there, Navy, everything. And I said, well, who's in England? Because I want to go back there. So I went across the hall of the Air Force, and there was a guy. My recruiter was Jack Gorman and Larry Schaff, not bad for 48 years ago, remembering. And Jack had been stationed in Alconbury, and so I had the base there. And again, remember, this is 4 years after Vietnam, it ended in Saigon. People don't realize the Air Force had the highest scores to get in. You had to score on ASVABs, they were called. And I'm thinking, oh, good luck with that if you look at my high school grades. And I did. I scored the level. I forget. There was a lot of testing, and you had to have FBI background checks that took a long time. All kinds. You don't just go in. And I had, even because I was adopted, interesting enough, Darling, you brought that up. I had to find an actual birth certificate. I think that's lost with my mother's stuff. I don't know, but it was, they listed the church I was baptized in, which was never in my records in Manhattan. So, but I wish I had. That's gone somewhere. And so, long story short, I got in the Air Force. I signed up I wanted to wear a beret. I wanted to earn a beret because it wasn't common unless you're. So the Air Force security forces had them. And there was law enforcement, which is like your cops on an air base, normal police. And then there's your combatants. And that was the security specialist field. 81130 was our designation. And so I took that one. And because I didn't want to be a cop on the base. And they were similar, we're very different. So this is where problems in the Rendlesham happen, because there's two different jobs dealing with the same thing many of the times. And so I got that gig, and I left for basic training, and I was in the inactive reserve at that point because I had to finish high school. And I finished that, and then I signed up for. Now, people have to understand, we didn't do it on a lark. It wasn't a popular thing, Joanne, to go into the military in the late 70s at all, after Vietnam and all that. And so there was a lot of bummer from older people I knew. And you don't want to do that. And I didn't want to hang out in university because to me, I thought that was no one was asking either, but that was an extension of high school. I wanted to get out in the world and come back to England and see the world. That was the best education for me. UFOs were not on my plans, but I signed up for 6 years. Now that's a big ask. That seems like a long time when you're a teenager, It's nothing now, I know. So I signed up for the 6-year thing, and that gave me the rank, after basic training, completing that, the rank of Airman First Class, because I signed up for 6 years. I've seen some people try to claim that I couldn't earn that in the time. Well, they're probably right, but this was how they taunted you in to the military. I took 2 friends of mine from high school. One went to the same job as me. We went through basic training, and Steve Madden, God rest his soul, he went into air traffic control, I think, at Keesler. So we went to high school together, and we went through basic together. We flew to Texas together so Jeff Lindsay and I went through the Security Police Academy on Lackland Air Base after the basic training, which was like being in prison. In the hottest summer Texas had in 100 years. And I'm from the East Coast, which gets tropical, but there was no heat like that down there. I got out of that plane in San Antonio. Wow. Texas hot, big difference. So we got through all that. My tech sergeant, my trained TIs were Sergeant Garza, Sergeant Harvey. They were both ex-U.S. Marine Corps, had all been in Nam. This is the people that were teaching us, not the woke thing that goes on, I guess, in the military now. And they didn't play. We got through it. I was the chow runner, got me out of a lot of crap. And then after that, we went into the Police Academy. My dad visited twice while I was in that. I was able to go, even in basic, I was able to go out and have dinner with my dad in basic. That does not happen to anyone. It happened with me. because my dad was a connected guy. And then in security police, he took me out. I said to the lieutenant that was in charge of our unit, there's my dad waiting. He was on business in Texas. And I said, oh. And he's an old Army guy talking to the lieutenant. And he goes, yeah, you can take him. I said, can Jeff come with me? And nope, he couldn't. So we had dinner in San Antonio, and I finished my security police training. And then we went off to Fort Sam Houston, the Army base for Advanced Air Base Combat School, which was base defenders, bombs going off, all kind of things. I had extra training. I got picked for it. I did. And then I finished that successfully. I went home on leave to New York, stayed with my mother. There was issues. I didn't go see my father. I regret it. And it was a very weird time in November of 1980. It was a very strange vibe in the air in my life. Some strange things, some bad choices on my part, looking back. And you go off to, and I flew off. My mother and her friend, Sue Hickerson, drove me down to McGuire Air Force Base, and I flew over to Mildenhall. There were 17 U.S. air stations in England at that time in the Cold War. I think we have 2 now, Lakenheath, Mildenhall. And I landed, and I remember I got on the bus and off to Bentwaters, and it had snowed that morning, just like I wrote in my book. And,
but you didn't go to Alconbury then?
No, right. Oh, well, we had a thing in the police school. One afternoon, we had to go to this building on Lackland Air Force Base, and you had your dream sheet. Now, I knew I was going to England because that was in my contract. I was already an airman first class. That was on my arm by that time because I was out of basic. And Alconbury, my first assignment was RAF Alconbury. Now, this is interesting. Thank God no one brings this up. I probably didn't describe it properly in the book, how weird it was. There was too much to get at. And I'm sitting at the desk, and this kid had great hair, I remember. And he was a little older than me, but very slick for cool hair, Why do I remember that? And he came up, he goes, oh, now here's a kid telling me, this is in the military. You don't do what I'm going to describe happen. It doesn't happen. It's at RAF Alconbury. I was going to go there. Hell, if I knew where it was. Oh, they've got the wrong assignment. I went to the window, this guy, if I remember, and they swapped assignments. So I was going to RAF Bentwaters, which didn't make a difference to me. We saw a book with pictures. I knew it had A-10s. I didn't know any more about it. North of London, not too far. Could see the Who, all that good stuff. And, I had a kid, it was still kids, but we were very different. We were high school kids at one point, and now we were trained killers at this point. We were trained to kill. Not in random, but that's our training was, protect assets with lethal force. A lot of hippies don't like that, but that's what the job is. That was changed. I didn't think anything of it then. I'm 18 or 19 at that point. Oh, well, okay. It doesn't work like that. So they made a mistake. Something happened there, and I was meant to go to Bentwaters. And I went with a number of other guys. Steve Longero, who was a witness to the Rendlesham incidents. Steve LaPlume. There's too many. It's a little bizarre. So I flew over, and we landed that day, come onto the base, and I was picked up by Bud Steffens, who was a sergeant who I had a sponsor, James Gage, who never showed up. I never met him the whole time on Bentwaters, and I knew everyone. And believe it or not, from my time there, so many people remember me. I got in my room, which is really depressing dorm-style rooms, and I met my roommate, who was from the South, and I went wandering. I said, well, I got to check this place out. And they had a bowling alley. That was the excitement on the base, in a movie theater. Not much going on. They're building new dorms for girls. I went up to the main gate, and there was a woman law enforcement officer manning the gate. And that ended up being Lori Reifeld, who was a witness a year before to a UFO incident. You can see she's in the movie Capel Green, unfortunately, what's gone on there. But she's in that, and we talked. She was from Long Island. I'm from New York myself, and met her that day. She left the country on the 15th, so I never saw her again until last summer. We've talked over the years, of course. that was it. That's how I got on the base. That was it. And then you meet your commander the next day. Malcolm Ziegler was the chief of security police. The deputy chief of security police was a difficult man. There were a lot of difficult officers, and then some very cool ones. I met some pilots. I hung out with them. You're not supposed to, but I did. What was his name? Drury, Carl Drury. You just meet your squadron, right? And you sit with Ziegler, and they go, "You're going to do this." I was assigned a D flight. I ended up working C flight. So that was initial paperwork, but I had 2 weeks of incoming training I had to take on the base starting the next day. And so on Woodbridge, we went to Woodbridge.
Can I just interrupt? We're in November now, are we?
Now, this is in December, early December.
Okay, 1980.
Yeah, so, yeah, 1980. So the month. And so the aliens gave me any time to get used to the place. And we had 2 weeks of incoming training. And my security clearance hadn't come through yet. You know, you need a clearance to work on the flight line, and particularly the weapons storage area, where they didn't say we had tactical nukes at all. That was never discussed, and we did. And that took even other further things. I got the shadow patrols. I rode with law enforcement just to make us do things, you know, get us used to the base. And we did refiring on the weapons, requalification, Woodbridge, all of that on the range. And took tests. We had to pass certain things, and it was all signed off by Sergeant Farias. I have all those documents, all of them. And I don't create military records on that. So after you complete that, then you get rotated on your ship. My security clearance, and it took a year, came through on the 15th of December. That's all on paper. Intact. It said security clearance.
And did you ever have to sign the Official Secrets Act at all?
No, that's a British thing, my dear. It's
okay. It's shared base, isn't it? So
we are bound by it'd be called a different thing, but and then it's all any violations punished by the UCMJ, which is the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You're not under civilian law. You're in a world of hurt if you get in trouble in the service, depending on who wants you in trouble. That was a very dark base. It wasn't a nice, nothing against England. I live here, right? But it was a very, I think I met some wonderful people on there. I'm still friends with lots of people from there in that time when we were young. But it was some very dark, deep, weird vibe. We heard all the stories about the ghost, the lady with no face riding a bike. We heard about East End Charlie. I didn't see that thing, thank God. East End Charlie, a lift-off pilot, because Woodbridge was a crash recovery base for bombers during the war. They'd come in and land there because they had trouble landing. They were shot up.
And just remind us, who was the Charlie character? What did you call him? And what was he?
That was East End Charlie. He was a German pilot that was shot down. I don't know if he burned, but he used to be seen. I didn't see it, but by the Air Rescue Recovery Squadron. He'd hang out near there and he'd salute, but he was in World War II gear. I think he was a German pilot, and the pilots were the chopper pilots.
Would this phenomena be seen anywhere near, say, Capel Green, the site of the event that we're going to talk about next?
No, it was. It's at the end of Woodbridge Field was the 87th Air Rescue and Recovery. So it would be around that area. You'd see him. And there was one time the fire department allegedly saw this guy on fire on the end of a fire truck or pickup truck. And they knew a lot of these stories. And the barracks were haunted and all these things. I didn't experience any of that. I had enough. But yeah, if you go straight from there through the forest, about a mile, you're going to come to Capel Green. But yeah, there was no involvement with him out there at all. Thank God. But yeah, that was it. So we heard all those stories, and witchcraft was big in Suffolk, and we had druids. You had to watch out for them, and I think half of it was a load of stories to scare people. Never UFOs. No one talked about UFOs. Nothing like that on the base. Nothing. And then we had Commie Corner, where you had the London Communist Party that would come up and literally photograph the tail numbers of all our planes all the time. You couldn't touch them. And then they would know where the planes were going in Germany. You know, they'd fly to FOLs, they called. And we give them choice words out of the back of the pickup trucks and all that. And we get that. But that was the times, wasn't it? We called it Commie Corner. Everyone will remember that place. It was near the old church. Yes. Yeah, so that was it. I was disappointed, but I knew my first weekend there, I went to London. I met this girl I met in Texas, and she was there. She wasn't a cop, and she tried to mix it out like she was in the internet, but she was a supply driver. But we had a hell of a weekend in London with these other people, and she cost me a whole paycheck, just like I wrote the book. But you live and learn. Like they always tell my son, hide your wallet. So he's better with his wallet than me. So it was all that fun of being young, and here I was back in England. I knew London a little bit. And if I didn't, I'm going to go there and find out. So I'd been in London. So I had that advantage over a lot of, some of the other kids. And I say kids because we were kids, but we were trained, military trained. We weren't just randomly from Detroit and everywhere. There were hillbilly type people, but they had to be kind of smart because they got in the Air Force. And so we're all crammed. There were like 4,000 of us between the bases and crammed into one place. And so you're pretty much learning how to meet other people from your own country in a foreign country. A lot of people, it was very hard for them. A lot of kids, it was hard to adjust and to adapt. And also, I don't think the environment on the base or the vibe, very negative vibes sometimes.
Yeah. So as we come up towards this great event, this astonishing event.
Events.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, many.
Just give us a little rundown like on a runway, a little schedule of how we got to the event.
Let me try this one because I always get depressed doing this. It's so hard because it's 45 years this year. It is what Gary Hazeltine found out. There's 17 timed events, not just 3 nights. And it's actually 4 nights altogether. I'm again only involved 1 night. I thought it all happened on 1 night. I didn't know there were previous or after. I did not know. So first night we get John Burroughs checking out on the East Gate, locks because they lock the gate at night. I don't like telling other people's stories because you're bound to get them wrong, and I know how it bothers me. And Burroughs is in law enforcement. He looks down the Eastgate Road toward the Rendlesham Forest, and there were lights in the forest. They thought it was an aircraft went down. He radioed for backup. Sergeant Peniston, Jim Peniston, everyone hears about him, and Cabanasac, who I trained with and flew over with. So we were all working at that point. We went through the same school, and you never hear about Ed, though. It's odd. So they got out, and they see the lights, too. I know exactly where they parked because Peniston showed me where they parked.
And what
I wasn't
date
there.
is this, Larry?
Dates are hard. It's, after Christmas, but before New Year's. That's what I always say, because I hear all this confusion in the Halt memo. I didn't write the date down. I don't want to say. Okay. Boxing night, they say, was it Christmas? The Boxing night.
26th. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. That's what they like to go with. I can't verify. I know my thing happened just before New Year's. And then the next night, this is interesting because it was all male dominated, these events, except night 2, which no one, would have if the film came out, but Lieutenant Bonnie Templin, law enforcement officer, first lieutenant or second lieutenant, I forget, gold bar. And she was very nice. I met her a few times, but she was on a patrol. Now, the night before with Peniston Burroughs, Cabanasac, the object's in front of him. This is where Jim says he touched the object and took notes on it, and it was from the future. John saw something different. Cabanasac saw something totally different. And then Bud Stephan stayed back because he didn't want to go out in the woods, apparently. And this was a senior guy. I know my training would say if I saw something hovering off the ground, our training was to cover, conceal, and relay, not go up and touch things. I don't like going after other witnesses, but sometimes people want to tie things in a bow. It doesn't make sense. Did it happen? Things happen to them? Absolutely. But the perception, I'm not sure. I can't say. I wouldn't have touched anything at all. But people are braver than me, I guess. The next night, Lieutenant Tamplin went on a vehicle patrol between the bases or near Bentwaters, and an object approached her vehicle. It knocked her off the road on her Jeep. She got out of the Jeep and fired a shot or two at it on British soil. That's an international incident right there. This is why this thing has been kept down. No, I didn't know about it then, but others are far more knowledgeable. Lieutenant, and she has never commented publicly, though she refused to work on site again. And here comes the...
Do you know what it was that knocked her off the road?
Yeah, it was a red light came at her vehicle. Object out of the side, and her vehicle went into a ditch. It had to be recovered, and she got out with a weapon. I'm not sure a GAU would have been a small M16, or they carried 38s. I don't know which. And she's never really filled this in. This comes from other witnesses on the base, and she fired off one or two shots at this object, and it really mentally hurt her. I saw her in the aftermath, did not know why, but she was very frightened one day talking to the assistant chief of security police in SP operations where I worked. So that's night two. I'm totally unaware of these two things I've told you about come night three, completely. I'm on my shift. We have guard mount. We get bused from the theater out to the base on the runway. We go to a place called CSC, Central Security Control. Our weapons are issued. Your weapon is noted, assigned to you, really, your M16. You get a different one every day. And we were placed on positions where the base was on alert. Now, it was a heavy time with the Polish and the Russian thing at that time, the Cold War. But we were on alert because of 2 previous nights, and I'll stand by that. Didn't know why. I was assigned to Perimeter 18, which was way at the end of Bentwaters runway where the aircraft come in. In a little dugout. It was a moonless night. I could picture all that. Our fences were much lower than you would see now on those bases. Reagan upgraded all the security. I saw deer jump our fences back then. And because everything had to be polite because we're in your country and it want to look like this Fortress America kind of idea I'm imagining. And I heard radio signals. We have the speak-outs tower at 80 foot in the weapons storage area. And from there, they were saying those lights are back again. And I'm looking around. I didn't see anything. I was quite far from, Woodbridge was far away, but you could see from up in that tower. And the next thing I see is that Airman Warren, you deactivate your post. So I was picked up by Sergeant Adrian Bustinza, who has verified all of this, by the way, many times, though people hate it. Bruce England, our lieutenant, ex-Marine, was in the front. And in the back were Mark Thompson from California. No one could ever find him. Greg Battrams, a few other people. And we get out, we go to the motor pool. We try to gas up the Light-Alls. Light-All is this machine with big spotlights when they refuel planes and all that. And they hooked them on the trucks. I didn't know how the hell to work these things. Met a convoy of vehicles, main gate. Bentwaters drove through the back roads to Woodbridge. We stopped at a roadblock. There was a small white car there with a woman, a little girl on the seat sleeping. I'm looking from the pickup truck. It wasn't covered. And they said, we won't delay you for long, because they'd let people in the back gate sometimes. They turned her around maybe. Went down, where are we going? Turn left after Reese Gate. And there was only one way into the forest. And that road still exists. Not all these trails nowadays. And that's the main road. And that leads to Capel Green. So we turned in that road. I thought we were on exercise. We had our weapons still loaded, which was against, we didn't carry between bases, obviously, but we were in the forest now. As Forestry Commission land, didn't know the name of the forest until much later in the 80s or whatever. No one knew it. It was just the woods. We went down there, just pine forest, and there was a clearing area that's still there. The remnants of it. And a lot of vehicles are there. Light-Alls, they didn't work, or they tried to work them when I was there. I'm trying to do this quick. We turned in our weapons to the armors on a pickup truck and broke up into small groups with flashlights and radio. We had to maintain radio silence someone in our group had radio on, and there were numerous. Now, I know Charles Halt came up to our group, and Lieutenant England, who you see, England is on that tape because he went with him. And I asked Halt years later in person, I said, did you wear glasses? And he wouldn't answer that, but at night maybe did.
And which tape are you talking about, Larry?
Well, the famous Halt audio tape of the incidents happening. It's 18 minutes of science fiction. I'm the reason it's out because the Japs gave it to me, Japanese. It was being sold around England early on, and I went to Japan specifically not to be on Japanese TV, but to bring that tape back, and I gave it to CNN, and that was aired in the West for the first time in 1985. Didn't charge a penny.
Strange lights in the sky. 244, we're at the far side of the Suffolk Farmers Field, and rate sighting again about 110 degrees. This looks like it's clear out to the coast. It's right on the horizon. Moves about a bit and flashes from time to time. Still steady or red in color. Also, after negative readings in the satellite field, we're picking up slight readings, 4 or 5 clicks now on the meter. 305. We see strange strobe-like flashes to the rather sporadic, but there's definitely something, some kind of phenomenon. 305 at about 10 degrees horizon directly north. We've got 2 strange objects, half moon shape, dancing about with colored lights on them. But gets to be about 5 to 10 miles out, maybe less. The half moons have now turned into full circles. As though there was a eclipse or something there for a minute or two. 315, now we've got an object about 10 degrees directly south, 10 degrees off the horizon. And the ones in the north are moving, one's moving away from us. It's moving out fast. Yeah, we're both heading north. Okay, here he comes from the south. He's coming toward us now. Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming down to the ground. This is unreal. 330, and the objects are still in the sky, although the one to the south looks like it's losing a little bit of altitude. We're turning around and heading back toward the base. The object to the south is still beaming down lights to the ground. 400 hours, one object still hovering over Woodbridge base at about 5 to 10 degrees off the horizon, still moving erratic and similar lights and beaming down this earlier.
It's a very famous tape, and it's Halt doing on a mini audio cassette. So they were in another group. So everything you hear with Halt is taking place on a vast different area and 2 different fields. I didn't know the name of the Capel Green. No one did. It's a farmer's field. We go through the woods. I'm trying to get this because it jams up. There's so much after it. There's this glowing thing on the ground. There were a lot of personnel. There were cameras set to my right. Sergeant Bastinzas to my right. Off in the distance, to the left is a farmhouse, upper windows lit, dog barking, no animals in the field. There was a cow or something, maybe mooing, and then it was dark. But this glowing thing on the ground, 50 feet in diameter, part of the ground, you could see through it, greenish yellow mist. Now, the Orford Lighthouse, they try to blame on all this. It has an inland shield, so light doesn't come inland. Makes sense, doesn't it? And then south of that, toward the North Sea, a red light, it was amber color, came in, did a downward arc, low, over, and this all happened like this, over the object about 30 feet in the air. This basketball-sized, amber-colored light. That was it.
Can I get a bit of clarity on?
Well, if you can, you'll be the first in 45 years.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, and you can just tell me, what's correct and what's not. Is that so? Yeah. First of all, you're seeing this low yellow-green mist that's quite thick, and does it look like it's part of an object, or that it's got an object within it?
Yeah.
Or
no. Yeah, it looked like it had a structure to it. It was about a foot in height, and it was basically like a ground fog, but it had a defined shape. Okay. About a foot in height, 50 feet across, fog almost moving around inside it. It's so hard to describe.
Well, it sounds like it was swirling, like some movement to the fog.
Yeah, it was doing that. Yeah, not swirling, but it was kind of stuff. And you're trying to put your head together on what you're looking at. This amber thing came across the field that quick. I thought it was a plane, but I don't know what I thought, but now. And it stopped, and then boom, it was a flash of light so bright, it burned my retinas, it did eye damage to others, documented. You don't make up medical records, I'm not a doctor. And then there was something totally different right in this place. There was just one thing was...
So sorry to interrupt, because I'm just trying to get clarity for my understanding. So we've got this green, yellowy mist going on, has some kind of liquidity, some movement to it. And
correct.
It start off red, this object that flies in and then turns amber and settles over this green mist. Is that what happens? And then it breaks into several shards or splinters, and then suddenly there is this fairly pyramidal-like object in its place. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah, the only thing not is that the amber-colored light ball thing was exactly that color from way out in the distance till it was right in front of me. It never changed. And then as soon as it was there, bang, and it was just like the page turns, a whole different reality. The mist was gone. This thing is in 30 feet from me, on the ground, and it's pretty close to some of those illustrations you see, though it was much brighter than that. But that is the shape. It was so... And
you were all standing around it in a sort of... kind of wagon circle, circling the wagons as you...
Well, in a way, there was... I can only assume there were people on the back end, but there were a lot of people facing this thing in a crescent. They're out there. They've spoken now. A number of people don't know that yet, but they have. Now, I have to tell you, as we were getting near that field earlier, the movement seemed very slow. It seemed like an outside influence, even looking back.
You mean so you're not like you were walking slowly, like you were walking through treacle or something?
Yes, exactly. And and I'm not the only one to remember that. And so it seemed like time was very slowed down. Your reactions wouldn't be a normal reaction. Your reaction would be to flee, to run. And we didn't. One person, I think, did. But in general, it was just very dreamy, but real. I could feel the weather, I could hear, but very slow. Even the voices slowed down. So there was a time thing going on. I'm not saying time travel, folks, just a time thing. That's all you can do is guess. I'll pick up real quick so we can get past that, is that our wing commander showed up. He didn't drive up. He walked up with other senior people. They had come from a event somehow. He had his flight jacket on. And this object, these things separated from the object to my right, and it split into 3 pieces. It was off the ground. It was about 2 feet. It was like bubbles inside it. It came off the fabric of this thing, which kept distorting and changing as you looked. The more you looked at it, it would change. These shadow things. And then in these things, as it faded, were non-human beings, end of. And I thought they were kids.
And so when you're saying your commander came up, who was that?
That was Wing Commander Gordon Williams when he was a 2-star general. He was, at that point, a full bird colonel. He was the wing. He was the senior guy, not Charles Halt. That was Williams.
So just to go back to this object then, because this is absolutely off the charts fascinating. So this kind of pyramidal structure.
Tell me about it.
Which is what, about 50 foot in diameter, do you reckon?
Craft thing, it was about 30 feet at the base, across, guessing, because I stand there to this day and try to picture it, and it went up to about 20 feet to the top and had a reddish orange light at the top, like that amber ball, and the base was a cobalt blue thing. I don't know if it was on the ground. I didn't see landing legs and all these things they talk about.
Understanding is there seems to have morphed, I don't know if that's the right word, from out of it, craft generated somehow these kind of bubbles of something or other that split into 3 separate parts, but were they all identically inhabited? Were they? They were.
I love how you said they were identically inhabited, by nothing less than non-human beings, and I will not dance around that anymore, because what the hell else were they? It was all filmed. Everything's filmed. Everything. All these releases they're doing in Washington. Where's this film? And it was flown out.
What are we looking at, sort of dimensions, size-wise here?
They had the eyes stuck out. The eyes and this round head type thing. And then this bright kind of to the body. I don't know if it was a suit or not. Does it have a what?
Did it have a color, whatever they were wearing?
Very just bright color. It was different than them, silverish. And I'm not saying like my favorite Martian suit and all that, but you get this is the problem with the subject. They make these aliens make fools out of us because you describe it. And it sounds like TV, doesn't it? Because I can see it happening.
These three entities, then, in their cocoons. So tell us about these three entities in their cocoons.
That's a cool word. They were very small, like a silverish tooth. I could not see the lower extremities of these things. I could tell they had arms, the head and the face. I could not see features on the face because the cocoons, as you call them, that's a good word, it was a goldish blue color for these things.
Are they emitting any kind of light?
The whole thing, yeah, they were lit from itself, you know, I mean, looking at it. And I could see their head, one of their heads move up because someone next to me, Sergeant Stins, actually said, these are children, are these children? And I'm like, I don't think I said anything. In fact, I was very disturbed to find out in a recent interview that he said I was closer to the thing than him. And I didn't remember that. And wasn't happy with that, but that's what he remembers. I don't like it. I'm not saying about him.
What sort of size were they, would you say?
About 3 feet, 3.5 feet. And then the cocoon thing was about in circumference, totally 4.5 feet around them, and very small. It was really small. It was so mind blowing that I mean, even thinking of it. But that was. I
can't even imagine. And what was the situation of them? Were they on the ground? What was that? Were they locomoting somehow?
Yeah, no. They were off the ground, a foot off the ground, and it separated from that craft and then split into three. And then as that faded in each of those cocoons, you could see the three beings, non-humans. They didn't look like us. And I believe they were alive, and because the center one head moved. Now, there's always been said there was communication with the Wing Commander Gordon Williams. And I believe Colonel Halt did say, I can't speak for him, I know what he says, but he also saw, of course they did, this. And I think they had a protocol they dealt with, or on the potential that things like this happen. I wrote that as much in my book years ago. If there was a communication, I didn't hear it, I didn't see it. But if there was, there could have been. But I've seen there were communications and there were hand signals, none of that.
Nothing touched you, nothing was personal to you.
No, nothing, no. In fact, as this was going on, not very long, the time is weird, our shift sergeant, Robert Ball, a real human being, Master Sergeant B on the CNN thing, who says, or I think it was Goulias that said, we saw a vehicle containing other people or another life form. So they used to always say, I'm the only one that said that. Well, I'm not. It's on CNN by another senior guy. So away from the old history, I was tapped out along with a few other lower rank guys. We went back to our vehicles. I can recall when we got out there, John Burroughs was off duty. He went through the first night. He knew these things were coming back, he says. I believe him. I like John. He's a nice guy. We've had our ups and downs, but he's a stand-up guy.
How long were you there? What's your perception?
I would say from the incident beginning to end, the actual thing happening is about, it seems like 45 minutes, from going through in that, but we're missing, as I wrote in my book, and I never said we got in a bus, there was no bus, we went back to the dorms. I don't remember traveling back to the dorms. I just know that back to Central Security Control, but when I got there, the sun was up. Now you have to remember, this event was taking place about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. I have 45 minutes of recall going out, but I'm seeing what I say I saw, and then being told to go back. And that kind of fades out. So in the book, I said, yeah, we drove back to the, because I couldn't remember it. We must have driven. We didn't walk. And the sun was out. It was first thing in the morning. People made jokes about little green men as we went to the CSC. The day flight was coming on. That is impossible, really. There's a problem there, bizarre problem. Now, I talked to Sergeant John Burroughs, who was my rank then. He was an airman first class. A few years ago, and I've met with John a number of times, and he said people think we're against you. We've spoken many times in person and otherwise. We're missing quite a chunk of time. There's a big gap. I've never explored it. There's too much to it. I don't particularly want something very strange happen to all of us. It could have been a mass abduction, mass mind, because then John went out in the field and had another event with Sergeant Bustinza where they talk about it. I won't go into that. I wasn't present for it. And that was after what I've just described on night 3. Now that happened, we were boom, and just real quick, because I'll get to what was night 4 a week later, which is that we were released from duty, we weren't put in isolation, nothing happened. We turned our weapons in, got back to my dorm. I went to the chow hall, where to have breakfast. And there was a security police table, and Steve Longero was sitting across from me, Sergeant Peniston, who was not involved that night, but he was there at the end. And I said, what just happened? And he said, Warren, shut the F up. He has confirmed this. Now, he shouldn't have been on base because he lived in Ipswich, but there's so much. So then I got mad, and I left. I got Greg Battram, who was also out there, who was an ex-Vietnam vet. And I went to the public phone on the base, and I called my mother, and I reversed the charges to the United States. My mother, Joanne, picked up the phone. She was having a little coffee soiree with our neighbor, Sue, very dear friend, Sue Hickerson, who is still alive at 93 now, very sharp, plays golf still. And they were having coffee, and I called. I said, Ma, and I can remember. And Greg's right there. I said, Ma, you won't believe this. A UFO landed near the base. I saw it. Blah, blah. All of a sudden, she isn't there. I called the operator back, and I said, listen, I just got cut off. And she goes, this is weird. It's a nuclear base. Of course, the phones are monitored anyway. She goes, I'm sorry, your call was disconnected on the base. So I looked at Greg, and he said, you're screwed. So never forget it. And I went, oh, shit. Well, I was screwed. And so I got fined, all kind of things happened. That night, we had a very bad thing with intelligence community happen to a number of us. There was narcotic intervention used. Now, I won't go into all this because I write about it. And the problem is that it doesn't affect what happened in that field. I saw things that if it's true, we don't live in the world at all we think we're in. Because I think that's not a surprise. So I was really under duress at that point because now they had a tape at the communication center where they have the Bentwaters Museum now, which is really dark for me to go in. And on that tape, you hear the call. So long story short, I wrote my mother a letter. I said, heck with that. I'm going to get a letter to her. I wrote a 6-page letter, which Gary Hazeltine has the actual letter, postcode, franking mark, the whole bit from the base. And I said, I talk about the UFO, but I try to do it second person in case they intercepted that. They didn't. That letter exists. It's a real thing. I've done many video things about it with the thing. And so I gave it to Gary, waiting for him to give me copies, please. And so I was in trouble, really. And so my mother saved that letter, and I have it. I have all the letters we wrote back and forth. And then she responded to that. She mentioned about the John Lennon shooting and all. And she goes, well, that was something. That must have been something, Larry, what you and others saw. And it was just that, a UFO. So that was my mother. And that is I'm writing this within days of the incident. So, it's never wise to lie to one's mother. So you run to your mother. We're all mama's boys. And I did. Long story short, I got out of the Air Force. They breached my contract. I was honorably discharged fully. I was working in security police operations so they could keep an eye on me. Then there were head games going on. I had my room raided for drugs, and I didn't do drugs. drug dogs, the whole bit. So it was getting very heavy, very heavy.
Can I
Not
just
just
need
for
to rewind a bit? I know you said you didn't kind of want to go into it, but just
it's so
briefly,
much to it.
yeah, but just so people who've never heard your story have a
Yeah,
real kind of sense of the duress and the
they couldn't.
well, you said that these
Careful.
intelligence guys intercepted you, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
you implied there were drugs used. For what
Oh
purpose?
yeah. Well, yeah,
Jog
to
the memory?
scramble the cabeza, obviously. Now, I had identified myself as a leak instantly. I called my mother within hours of the event ending. I was sick from it. I had a metallic taste in my mouth. My eyes were watering profusely. I had a shock of gray hair that came out of nowhere. I had brown, lovely hair back then. And of course, there were many effects on many people. It's not just me.
Sorry, Larry. I just want to know, were there any long-term effects that you were
Yes,
thinking
yeah,
about?
of course. Yeah, documented stuff. I can get into that. If I get off this thing, I can go right to the
Okay.
medical stuff
Oh, all
that
right.
came out years later. I mean, from nuclear exposure, documented. I mean, sorry.
Yeah.
So that's a great one. Long story short, we were called in our day room to go meet this car, GOV, government-owned vehicle. And it was in our parking lot. They were building new houses, which are old houses now. And the car was there. We walked over. We got hit with, I'll make it very short, tactical aerosols. It had to be. I heard, and you couldn't move. We were taken to a part of the base, Sergeant Stins and myself, and 6 other people, because I've been regressed on it. Certain people wanted those names. Sadly, they got them, because I'll protect witnesses.
Just ask again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to do
Well,
this.
people are going to have to read my book and
I know.
watch movies.
I know.
They're going to have to do
But
it.
can we just talk
it's
about
not
this?
fun.
You were in a car park being called there by
Yeah.
who?
Well, we were called on the same voice that would call us periodically and ask what kind of dreams we're having after it. We didn't have phones in our rooms. We didn't have mobiles then, kids,
No.
or computers. And we would get a call. And we had a day room downstairs, and you go down, and we had a phone in it. And I would every now and then, the phone would ring. Someone would come up, bang on my door. You got a call in the day room. So I go downstairs, and they go, "What kind of dreams have you been having, Warren?" They didn't say Larry; it's Warren, last name. That is how that contact happened. We were told to go meet this car, which we did. And then these guys came around the construction stacks of plywood and got us, suit guys, real suit guys, Fetties.
Were you already in the car when you were aware that you clearly lost consciousness?
No, the door was open, and I was going toward it. This guy pointed, and then someone came to my side, this left side, and I heard it, and that's it. I could hear, but I couldn't see or move. Yeah, it was an exotic toxin they use. I know
like
about
you were
it.
immobilized.
Immobilized 100%, so you can fight, and I would have fought. I think I kicked my legs. I had scratches on my face because it was icy so I fell out of that car at one point, or was dragged out. And then there's a part on the base down below it that we were taken, and we had a number done on us. I can tell you that. And I came out of there on New Year's Eve. Now, people were told I was on emergency leave, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Steve LaPlume will tell you, others. And reality, I came out New Year's Eve. I walked out the day, it was still sunny. And I'm looking around going, what? And I look back, and it was a photography shop. It was the base on the flight line. But there was something else. And they're looking at me like, who are you? Never forget it. Yep.
So how many days do you think you were gone?
I don't know. I know that was maybe a couple, 2 days. It was, it was disturbing to me. It's still, because you can't put the pieces together. And I'm not alone with this. So long story short, because you want to get in the medical day. It's so complex, I know. And to me, it isn't, but it's frustrating more than anything. Even 65 years old, Bentwaters part jams it all up, because it's what happened after I was in the Air Force that makes it really ironclad in a bad way. So I pursued, through a lawyer named Persky, a breach of contract discharge on my part. The Air Force broke my contract. I was not doing the job because they wanted to keep eyes on me and other guys. I wasn't a snap. I was still a security police officer. I did special details. I went to Germany for the hostages. But back, it was a lot of mind games and psyop stuff going on. There were people that shouldn't have been there and talking to me, and they weren't even there when the incidents happened. They knew all about them. It's just crazy. You go on forever with this stuff. So this person, he goes, "You're going to be fireproofed." I said, I went through this thing, and he goes, "They wouldn't." He goes, "I know what you're saying." Okay. And his name was, he was a colonel, and his person, he was a base lawyer. And he said, "You have breach of contract." He said, "You're going to get fireproofed, whatever that means." And he goes, "What you need to do." So he started the whole ball rolling so I could get out and then go back in under another job. That's how, I was a kid, man. I was screwed up all this at this point. I was not the same guy I was when I got to that base. Not at all.
And so by the time we're talking about this incident, you've been in what, 6 months? Is that more or less?
No, I went in and I enlisted in 1979. This is
79. I'm sorry. Yeah, my mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the full whack in because I went to the inactive reserve when I came home, and I was doing reserve work before I even left for the actual. I trained before I even went in the Air Force for a year. So with the Air National Guard. So people don't realize that I didn't just pop into the place. Any UFOs around? I gotta write a book and ruin my life. How many marriages can you have? Yeah, it's just that horrible subject to end up. But I hate bullies. I grew up that way. I was a bully killer. I'm only 5'8", but I jump. Yeah, I'll tell you, beat up on people, and I saw it nonstop. And I hate abuse of power. I hate it. And I knew UFOs existed. I saw firsthand. I was not interested in the subject at that point in my life, late teens. I was more interested in chasing girls, never got lucky, and then rock and roll and fighting with bands and all that. So this was not a remit for me. And I had it, and the real deal, real as a donut, how they suppress. And this is 1980. It was fully honorable discharge. Breach of contract. I left as a security policeman. The economy was so bad in late 81 is that I tried to go back into a different job. All was fine, all was good, and then it turned out I had a re-enlistment code that does not exist on any known books, and that's verified by real officers and things. Yeah, I was only an airman first classman, and that was really dark. How this all came out, Rendlesham, if you want to go there, because we get stuck in the Air Force. What happened is that I didn't even tell, my mother knew about it, obviously. We didn't talk about it. She wouldn't discuss it with me. My sister, I'm at home thinking, oh my God, what am I going to work in a supermarket? I'm a trained killer now with nowhere to kill, nowhere to go. And my sister got the phone rang, the old phone, picked it up in the kitchen, and she goes, "Mary, someone's on the phone." My sister doesn't believe in anything. And I go, "What?" And the phone was tapped. It was being tapped. There was definitely someone on it. And I go, "Who is this?" And it hung up. It was crazy. Or my sister went to call someone, and someone was on the line. So that was the first kind of weirdness. And then I moved to Connecticut, and I was there at my dad's trying to build some kind of life. I was, I worked around music. I drove a truck for a florist wholesaler from JFK. Not little flower deliveries, I mean, commercial stuff. And having a good young guy time, but still screwed up from this Rendlesham, definitely. I didn't know how much. And my dad would have been the last person I thought I could tell this to. Why was I out of the Air Force? No one asked me really. And then one day I'm down, my stepmother wanted cigarettes, and I said, "Oh, I'll go get them for you down at this 7-Eleven or whatever it was. Cumberland Farms it was called." And I went down, and on the magazine rack, I always look at the free reads, and Omni Magazine was a magazine back then that dealt with old science, and you may be familiar. I don't think they make it now. And they had a section called UFO Updates in the middle, and I have the actual magazine. And I'm going through it, and I go, oh, and it said December 30th, 1980, and it showed these 3 aliens around this craft in the English countryside, an artwork kind of thing. And it said a UFO landed near RAF, and I'm like, oh my God. Well, there were little rumors around, and Jenny Randall's got on it and all. but that don't make people whistleblowers. You're talking to the whistleblower. I saw that. I went, oh my God. So I went and told my stepmother, I'm like, you want Sandy? I said, you won't believe this is what happened. She goes, what are you talking about? You know? So that night, I think I gathered my military records. We found out my dad knew the head. This is why I told my father. He was golfing buddies with the head of the Connecticut National Guard. He was a general, but in real life, they're in business, you know. And he said, Jack, the guy was Jack, and he said, you know, my son's having trouble getting in the service. I said, can you help him out? He goes, yeah, I'll take care of him. As a general, you can do that. He never talked to my father again, except once. My dad ran into him, and I said, Dad, any luck with that Jack guy? And he goes, nope. He said, he isn't talking to me. He said, Larry, he saw him at some function. He goes, I cannot help you with your boy. I can't do this. Turned out my military records were all classified in St. Louis. Can't get access. I needed lawyers to get them. The whole bag. So I said, Dad, you got to sit down. I got to tell you something. Well, I went through the whole shebang as I could relate to it then and told my father and my stepmother at the table. I never went into it. My mother, I swear to God, never asked. Always supported me, but never wanted to. I think because a mother didn't want to see this. And my father, then he goes, well, now it all makes sense. And that was the biggest relief because my dad, I'm from a very straight family. You know, I'm the wild guy. And that was a big deal for me. Thank you, Dad. And fascinated, interested. And he said, now all these weird things with you. Because he said, I was starting to wonder what happened to you over there. So as that happened, then I saw an article with these two couples, Betty and Andreasen, the Andreasen case, and they became dear friends. And they lived a town over. And I called her husband at Middletown Toyota, and Bob, he was a mechanic there, listed it in the Harper Current. I said, I had oral surgery that day, and I said, don't believe this. I'm not drunk, but I went through something. I need to talk to somebody. And so I went over, talked to them. They hooked me up with Larry Fawcett. Long story short, with my information, it was given to Citizens Against UFO Secrecy, and they filed the then new Freedom of Information Act request. After numerous denials by my government, your government in June 1983 released the Halt memo, and that came out. That was like science fiction, even though the dates are all messed up, and it's a conglomeration of numerous events that happened. Bang, my friend Steve LaPlume, he was the fourth night, by the way, on the East Gate, and probably was abducted, but I won't go into his story. He's quite a character. He wrote the book Rendlesham Redemption. It's quite a book to get, folks, on Amazon. And he was a mercenary and a superbike racer. He was a great guy. And we fell out for a period, and but we're lifelong friends, long friends since we were kids. And so that happened, and all of a sudden, boom. And I didn't want my name used. I think the News of the World blew it out on the front page in October '83. I was known in the States, but I didn't want my name used. So Barry Greenwood, they wrote Clear Intent. The first book I was ever in, the government cover-up UFOs. And it had the Halt document, and it called me Art Wallace. I never used the name. It was put in the book. In fact, I didn't like the name. I just didn't want my name used. As time went on, I became the Larry Warren we know. CNN did a 3-part series, UFO, the Bentwaters Incidents. Lee Strieber, you may know him. He wrote a book, Communion. And I knew Whitley, and even in '85, I knew him before that came out. And I said, man, I'm in some books, and it's so inaccurate, like Sky Crash, a bunch of them, actually, even by then. And they never got it right. They never came to me. So Whitley told me, Whitley Strieber, the Communion guy, and he said, well, why don't you write your own book? So in '87, I was married, my first wife. I said, okay, I'm going to do that. I titled Left at Eastgate. Came into my mind from what was said that night. And 11 and a half years later, it came out. One marriage down, the whole bit. And I had the co-author. I met at the MUFON 40th anniversary thing in Washington, D.C. in '87. Been in 9 countries with Rendlesham. Not about me, trying to get people to know about it. Not Larry, it's not just me. The greatest thing is, I guess, with people, because it's such a long thing, is that when it comes, I have passed 6 voice stress analysis done by law enforcement people. That means they find whatever they had to understand. They were done without my knowledge by different people. I have it all documented, but what's really good, we started a film. It's having trouble right now. It's finished. It's been shown in Australia and here in England once. Too long, a lot of issues, and then there's gold in it. Stunning gold. Absolute scientific proof of Capel Green, what happened there, 100%, which we had many years ago, but this is real current live science that is, look good to me, but it's heavy stuff. I was asked, would I take a polygraph examination? Now, people always say, well, polygraphs, you cannot beat modern polygraphs. That's the first thing I learned. I wanted to take one. CNN wanted to do a follow-up. Would I take one? Back in the 80s, conducted by the Connecticut State Police. When the police found out what the nature of the test was, they declined doing it. So I finally had an opportunity. I took it with Patricia, God bless her, the top one in England. She might be retired now, examiner. She does special forces. She has done 3,000, highly regarded, and she runs that. She's not some random TV show hack they get with the internet. And so I said, yes, I'll do it. And we did it in London in 2017. It's always filmed by 3 cameras. No one else is in the room. The filmmaker has tried to suppress that for ego. I don't know why. That's all being dealt with. So I took it, and there was a pre-interview, folks, when you do a polygraph. I didn't know how you do a polygraph. And it was just a paragraph about, I was on duty, I went to this post, I saw this. Sign it if you agree. Just a brief. I signed off on it, and she said to me, and Pat was from New York also, but she was married to her husband did all the Around the Worlds with Michael Palin, produced all those. And she said to me, she goes, Larry, and this is on film, I have to tell you, even a little lie, you will fail the test. And I'm like, thinking this is going to get real here. So it got on me, and there were 3 questions. The first question was basically the control question I just told you. The other 2 were about personal character traits. Now, I couldn't quote what they are, but would you intentionally lie to your friends or put yourself in a position? All these, there were 3 of them. And then I sneezed or I scratched my nose. She goes, we're going to have to do this again. She goes, nope, the reading. Well, when it turned out, I'm thinking, at this point, do you want to hear the results? I'm thinking, wow, my ass is, I'm thinking, this is real deal stuff here. Do I believe what I'm saying? Well, I'm happy to say that I passed that in the 98th percentile of however they chart these things. I'm actually enraged that I had to go through that. It needed to be done. And I wanted to set a precedent because to this day, I am, and all the other witnesses that, especially Halt, Peniston, a few others, have been invited to take it gratis. They cost £4,000 to take these things. They were offered them gratis. They have refused. So I am very proud that I am the only Rendlesham Forest witness that has ever agreed to sit a polygraph. I did sit a polygraph, and I passed that polygraph.
I'm really delighted. Yeah. I wouldn't have been surprised, to be honest, that that you have.
Well, I wasn't 100%, and then you start seeing the weight of, wow, wonder if I, not that I know I'm not lying, but wonder if it reads that I am. This woman had no interest in you. At the end of it, she goes, I believed you. She goes, not that I wanted to, but she goes, I really wanted you to pass this because you could tell you've been through something. She goes, I'm fascinated. She goes, so they're real? I go, what do you think? She goes, they're real. They're definitely real.
Well, Larry, we're coming to the end, and it's been an absolute joy. So thank you very much. And I'm sure our audience have found it fascinating. And of course, there's loads more we could talk about, but we only have
maybe another time.
But yeah, maybe
you still remind me of Debbie Harry from Blondie, so there you go. Oh, what a joy. Thanks for having me on. Really nice questions, too, about real life. No one ever asked them.
Also, I'm interested in the impact and the fallout of all of that because it impacts your life You know,
Very
incredibly.
rare.
And I've been working with people publicly since 2011 under the Amash Project banner and now under the ET Newsroom. And, you know, I've spent time with military people, and especially Mike Smith, who I told you about. And it's a shame that you guys never connected,
I
because,
would have loved to hang out with him, man.
well,
I
you know,
would've.
you check out his book, or the book that I wrote for
I
him,
will.
and listen to some of his stories, and look at that obituary that I
will.
sent you, the death of a legend. Because I tell you what,
Yeah,
Mike
bless
Smith,
him.
I mean, it's one of the most amazing British stories, and yours is incredible too. So thank you.
We are many.
Thank
We
you.
are many. It's a big crew. Thank you.
Okay.